Hello.
That's okay.
Okay. So just to go over a few things about the senior year before Susanna talks about college applications. So the first event coming up is homecoming. And this year, the senior float is Mamma Mia themed. So the kids are starting to get all that organized, and they're already making their like tissue pom-poms, to go on the float. And we'll be having a float making party, and I'll be sending out information over email and also on Facebook. So as you know, probably when you went to high school, I don't know, I went to high school in San Jose, we made huge floats for homecoming. These floats are more like with a wagon. It's really cute, instead of like the big trailers, but the kids get really into it, and there's a judging process, and it's fun, and there's dancing, and the whole thing. So the more people that we have to volunteer to make the float, the more fun it is, and the easier it is on the people who are actually making the float. So you're not seeing that till midnight or 1 o'clock, the night before. So if your kids are interested in that, be on the lookout on the Facebook page for homecoming. Then, as many of you know, our advisors are Devin LePage and Mr. Todges are our teacher representatives, and we're lucky to have them, especially Devin. I think she's been a teacher representative many years, so she knows all the ins and outs, and definitely are going to be informed and know exactly what we need to do, all the deadlines, so you don't need to worry about that. If you haven't joined the Facebook page, it's Class of 20 PFA, Class of 2023, and join that. We'll have updates there. But if you're not on Facebook, that's okay. I'll always be sending check-ins and emails, and you're always welcome to reach out to me personally as well. I often my phone number email if you have any questions or concerns. Yearbook, so if you haven't taken your senior portraits yet, make sure to schedule those appointments, because you want to make sure to get in the yearbook with your, the senior portfolio. And Will Smith Photography sent out some emails, and if you didn't get an email from them, you can just reach out to Will Smith Photography and schedule an appointment. You can also schedule online. I called them because I just wanted more information. So McKenna has her sitting on Sundays, so they are open on the days that they're open other times, but it went really well, and choose your senior portrait like right there that day for the yearbook. Has everybody have their senior portrait?
Can I just add something that it is free to just have the picture taken. You don't have to pay for a package or anything. It is free just to have the picture.
Okay.
And then if you want a package on top of that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just so if you didn't hear that out there in Zoomland, it is free to take your picture for the yearbook. So if you do want additional, there's different cities that you can pay for, but for the yearbook it'll be free. Any other questions about the senior portraits? And announcements about cap and gown, that'll be coming in November. And then prom is April 22nd, and more to come about that. Graduation is June 8th, and that'll be at the Memorial Auditorium, which is amazing. We're so lucky to have that. I was there last year as a board member, and it was just breathtaking and really special. And air conditioning, which is nice, because as you remember last year, we were going through a heat wave, and a lot of, like UC Davis had the counselors in the middle. It was so sad, and so many schools struggled. We're lucky to have a small amount of people graduating, so that we can use the Memorial Auditorium. I think other schools just can't. Don't need additional information about that, graduation at all.
6:30.
Yeah.
Thursday the 8th. So
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah. Blow up.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I don't know if you,
Yeah.
have you decided how
We
many?
haven't decided traditionally because we 10 tickets per family. We still working on auditorium. There'll be information released.
Senior breakfast will be Wednesday, May 24th. That's here at school, not the juniors put that on, for the seniors. So that's really fun. And senior sunset will be June 11th. And diploma pickup will be the day after graduation. So June 8th is graduation, and then we have. We're still working on grad night, so not sure for sure exactly about that, but we're exciting. In the class of 2023 is going to be exciting. And what that looks like. But, want to congratulate everybody who made it this far. And I know this being a mom of 12th grader is, you know, like, bittersweet and lots of emotions and, you know, some stress too with the college application process. And like I said, we're lucky to have Shenk-Tiffany, the leadership and Suzanne to help us through this process. She really has really a lot of wisdom to share with us tonight. This is going to be recorded, so don't worry about taking notes because you can listen to it at a further time. So without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Suzanne.
All right, so I'm trying to figure out if I should use the mic or should I just stay here and project and I can, oh, you'll do that? Okay, all right, sounds good. So good evening. I did almost introduce myself too because I'm a parent of a 7th grader, so that counts too. So I'm a 7th grader here. See, I can't. So you can see all these happy faces up here, right? So what your children, for your seniors, your children will look like on June 8th, right? All right. So tonight I want to talk. Thank you. I just want to introduce me for those of you who don't know who I am. Some people, you know, like Kami, she's been. Yeah, I was gonna say, you know, I have 3 kids now. He is a wealth of knowledge. No, that's all. Thank you, Kami. But that's not why I said that. I just wanted to say that some of you I know real well, and then others of you I haven't had the opportunity to get to know. So I'm happy to see you here tonight and all of you in Zoom land. But I am the 11th and 12th grade academic counselor. So that means I work with students on academic interventions that are struggling, but I also do a lot of the college and career pieces. I've been a school counselor now for 22 years, I think. And my first job was at the Los Angeles County High School for the Arts. And I loved it so much. So years later, after my husband went to various places for his work and his education, when this position opened up, I just said, I've got to go there because I love at school for the arts. I love the energy and I love the students, the creativity, and it's never disappointed there. So yeah, and I'm a parent of some good, like I said. All right, so the question on everyone's mind, of course, is what's next, right? And I tell the students for 13 years, you've known exactly what you were going to do, right? And then, right, for 13 years, you're going to get kindergarten all the way to 12th grade. But after that, now's the time when you get to choose, right? And so, I tell them it's okay to feel anxious and confused and uncertain and overwhelmed. And the same goes for you all, right? So because you can feel that energy too, especially as they're trying to explore and figure out what am I going to do? Or maybe they have a very distinct path, but then there's sometimes bumps along the road and things like that. So we will get through it together. And that is the beauty of having a community, right? That we can all support. And the students know they have the support. And I hope you feel like you do as well. Can you go? Okay. So one idea that I was going to fly out here, no pun intended, but there's a great book called Grown and Flown about how to support your team to stay as close as a family and as you kind of go through this process. And so if anyone is interested, we could do like a monthly Zoom, book club kind of thing. And because it's actually 9 chapters in the book, so we could do 1 chapter a month for the 9 months. Because sometimes it's nice to get a little support. So I offered this up last year. I only got 2 takers, but it was COVID. Everybody's overwhelmed. I totally understand. So, but again, if we get some people who are interested, just you can fill out the Google form. I think we're going to share this presentation share this presentation. But just, we can fill that out, we can set up a Zoom book club once a month, if anyone's interested. All right, so what are the options for life after high school? And sometimes the students say to me, well, all you talk about is college. And I said, well, that's not necessarily true. We talk about all the different options for life after high school, but if you look at the math, if you look at numbers, historically, 65 to 70% of our graduates go on to a four-year university, and then 25 to 28% go on to a two-year community college. So that's the bulk of our students, right? But it's not everyone, and it's not right for everyone. There's lots of different options, and they're all valid, and they're all great, and it's all about doing your planning and your research while in high school so you can make that next step forward, whatever path you choose to go down, right? And all of us know people who've done all these paths and they're happy, right? That's what I told students, and we know people who've done all these paths and they're happy. Okay, so besides those two higher education options, we also have the military. We kind of go through that. We have recruiters who can come to on campus with your permission and meet the students who are interested. We also have a few students who decide just to start their career right away. We had a student who was like, I'm going to be a real estate agent right after high school. I'm going to take the exams. I'm going to do all this work. We have some students, typically a few, that decide to take a gap year. So they're trying to figure out what they're going to do between. A lot of, it's very popular in Europe for people to take a gap year. I had a good friend who, her son went to Davis High School. After high school, he was super burnt out. He said, I'm going to do a gap year. He went to Africa for a year, came back, totally different person, went to college and felt like that was exactly the right thing he needed and was very focused and, went forward from there. So these are lots of good options, and we discussed them all. Okay? So for the four-year university, last year with your students, I met with them in their English class, and we used our Naviance College Career Planning System. They've taken in 10th grade, they took some interest assessments and some personality assessments to see what kind of careers might match them. And then last year we said, okay, based on those, and looking at those, what kind of schooling or what kind of education might you want to earn to get that career? And so they looked at that, okay, and then they said, okay, what kind of schools offer those majors so I can do that career? So they've all done that to some extent. I looked today and one student had logged in 67 times. And I was like, wow, that's pretty awesome. So other students have logged in 3 or 4 times, right? And so there's all in between. But that's a great resource. So as we talk to students about who are looking at four-year universities, the main thing I talk to them at this point in September is they need to finalize their list of schools, okay? And so for those of you who are out there, when we went to school 20 years ago, 25, some of us more than that, it was so different, right? My husband and I joke that he got into UC Davis right out of high school, and his GPA was not, not anything near what Davis would, accept this year. So things have really changed a lot. So we talk about applying just a couple of reach schools. And so for a lot of our students, those are schools that typically their GPA would be above what the students are, right? And then there's some schools that are reaches for everyone. Stanford, they accept 4%, right? They told us, I went to a conference with them a few years back, and this is when everybody had to take the SAT. They said we reject 90% of kids who turn in a perfect SAT score. It's just because that's not all they're looking at, right? They're looking at all these other factors. But that's how competitive it is. So that's a reach for everyone. And then for other students, the other schools might be a reach. For some students, UC Davis is a reach. For other students, but they should still apply, right? They should still apply, definitely, because they don't know. We had a young woman on I think it was 5 years ago, who was like, I'm not going to apply to Yale, I'll never get into Yale. She got into Yale. And so, but if she hadn't applied, right, as a reach, she never would have known that. So we also then tell students to apply to 4 to 6 match schools. So that's schools where the average GPA of that school is a 3.5 and your GPA is a 3.5, that's probably a match. And then we tell them also to apply to a couple likely schools, meaning like I'm pretty sure that I have a great chance of getting in there, but these are all schools that I would like to attend. And so if you don't have a school on your list that you're interested in attending, then I said meet with me, because there's 4,000 schools in the US. I will find the school that you'll be excited about attending that will be a likely or a match or a reach, and come up with a good list. And so we typically encourage them to come up to, so if you add those up, we're talking 6 to 10, right? And some of you out there, if you have students that are doing musical theater, I say 10 to 15, or engineering,
or nursing, you probably want to do more because those are the three most competitive programs out there. And so, and we'll talk a little bit more about looking outside of California too. Okay, so that's what in yellow is what your students should be doing now if they're looking at four-year university. Really should finalize their list. And if they haven't finalized it, they should meet with me or talk over with someone and get that finalized. Okay, if they're looking, if they're looking at a two-year community college, right now, really, they should be looking at their options. We are so fortunate to live in the Sacramento area, and we're part of the Los Rios Community College District. So the way that they've instituted what the Promise Grant, which was Assembly Bill, I think 109, or I can't remember the number, is that students coming out of high school can go for 2 years for free, as long as they fill out a financial aid application, which we'll talk about later, and as long as they take 12 units, full-time status. So they're paying no tuition. Isn't that fantastic? It's such a great thing. So students right now should be looking though, because not every community college is the same. So I live really close to Sac City College. If you've ever been there, it's a very, it's a little more urban, it's just a little bit smaller, more traditional student. If you go to American River College, much bigger. The average age there is 24. If you go up to Sierra College in Rockland, did you know they have a dormitory? They have a 2-story dormitory there. A lot of people don't know that, yeah. So it has a totally different feel. You go to Santa Monica College, it's real close to UCLA. They share a lot of the same professors. So just doing some research and finding out what community college has a program that you're interested in, because they all have different specialties and they don't like to duplicate. So if you were interested in being a veterinary technician, you would go to Princeton Missouri College. If you wanted to do jazz music, you would go to ARC. So there's all these different programs that are available. There's hundreds of them literally. So we tell students that those the applications will open up in October, and so they can fill those out. The good part is that we are automatically accepted. So with a high school diploma, they can enroll. So they don't have to worry about, am I going to get in, am I not going to get in? So it's really about choosing the right college, community college for them if they're going to go that route. Okay, thanks a lot. Okay, the military, again, right now, what the students should be doing is meeting with the recruiter, talking about their options and taking the ASVAB. Anyone here ever taken the ASVAB? Oh yeah, it's tough. Wow, that was a humbling experience when I took my first ASVAB. But that's a way that they look to see what your aptitudes are, your skills are, and they place you in, give you job opportunities in the military based on that. So, and I've given students some study sites, and we've already had 2 students meet with a recruiter already, and they're just looking at their options with no commitment, they're just checking it out. So, okay. Again, work and career. We talk about the different things that don't require, a 4-year college degree. There are many careers out there. There's also career technical schools that just focus on a very short-term program, and so we talk about those as well. And the students interested in this, we have a great resume building program in our Naviance system. And I can also work with them on their resume. And they do some job interview skills and senior experience this year. So there's lots of good things there. Okay. And so again, the gap year programs, there's some programs that are out there that students can actually apply for and do. I'll have a speaker from a program called City Year, and they'll come in and talk to the students like in April or May about their program and see if students are interested in that. But there's, right now, if they're interested in that, they should research that and talk it over with their parents, right? Because I would say, you're not doing a gap year unless the whole family agrees we're doing a gap year. But for some students, especially with COVID, we had a young woman who, she was COVID, she was like, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know what to do. Got into some schools, decided to take a gap year, then reapplied to a bunch of new schools, and ended up going to NYU after that year. And that, I think they really needed that year to like reevaluate, take their time and really figure out what they wanted to do. So it worked out really well a lot of times. Okay, if your student's going to a 4-year college, those of you who, again, old like me, you remember we had to take this test called the SAT, ACT, right? Okay, so now, because of a lot of universities were looking to see, is this really a valid assessment of how well that student's going to do at my college? They were already looking at that, and then COVID hit, and all the test centers shut down, and nobody could take the SAT or the ACT. So then really kind of prompted people to change their stance on the testing. So now every university in the country is either considered test blind, test optional, or test required. And so for here in California, our public institutions have said that they will be test blind until further notice, which may be forever, which may be for 5 years, we don't know. So for the University of California, for the Cal State universities, they will not look at a test score for admission. They can look at it later, like once the student's been admitted, they can say, oh, you've got a great English score, you don't have to take an English placement test, something like that. But they cannot look at it for admissions. So for a lot of students, they're like, yes, that's awesome. I don't have to take one more test. For other students, they're like, yeah, I actually did really well on those tests, darn it. So that's again just for California. There's lots of schools out there that are test optional, like Stanford would be one, University of Pacific. And then there's a lot of schools, or not a lot, but there are some schools that are still test required. They do require students to submit a test score. So it is important to do the research and look at what the policy is. And I tell the students, just Google, you could say Stanford admissions test policy, and it'll be the first thing that pops up. Again, there's so many schools, over, I think I actually said 5,000, but that's with 2-year schools. But there's so many schools, I can't memorize them all, and they change year to year. So it's important to do your research. Okay. So one of the very popular institutions that our students end up applying and attending are the Cal State University system. And the one closest to us is Sac State. Yeah, Sacramento State. Yeah. And there's 23, you may not realize there's so many, all the way far south, San Diego State, all the way up to Cal Poly Humboldt. You might not know that Humboldt just became the newest Cal Poly. Yeah, so now there's 23. The best part, not the best part, but one of the best parts about Cal State, a lot of people don't realize that the tuition is so affordable, right? The most tuition fee is about $7,000 a year. And so when you're looking at some of these private schools that are $60,000 a year tuition, like $7,000 is whoa, it's pretty amazing. So the application opens October 1st and it closes November 30th. So if you're going to write down any date tonight, November 30th is the key. So students have to apply by November 30th. And they can apply to as many as they want. I definitely would not apply to 23 because you still have to pay $70 a campus, which I don't understand how they can charge that much, especially for these guys, because all they're looking at, honestly, are grades and classes attended. They're not reading essays. There's no essays. Maddie? There's no early admission, all regular admission, yeah. But you look for a lot of students, they'll find out real early that they got in. If they know like a student, like say Chico, a student applies, and they say, oh, this student is well above our cutoff that we're going to accept, they might let you know real early, like December. But other universities like Cal Poly Zenlitz will be like March. Yeah. Right, no.
And they so stressful. That is looked at until November.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. Exactly, and I always say there's no bonus points for turning it in the first day, unless you just want it off your plate, right? But my goal would be get it done before Thanksgiving. And you should be able to relax and enjoy Thanksgiving break and not have to have that hanging over your head, right? Yeah, so they're also for, like for me, I grew up low income family, and so I was able to get fee waivers for these applications. So they ask you about family income, so they'll ask how much money does the family make, how many people are in the family, and based on that, you can get up to 4 fee waivers, meaning you can apply to 4 campuses free of charge. But they won't tell us what that cutoff is, right? Because they're afraid that everybody will put that number. If you say family of 4 making less than 65,000, everyone's going to put 64,000, right? So they won't tell us what the number is. That's how that goes. So again, it's purely based on admissions of students earning a 2.5 or better. And again, there's a huge difference in campuses from Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, and Long Beach State, San Diego State. But there is definitely, if your student has over a 2.5, there is a CSU that would love to have them. And based on the majors, there's some CSUs that those programs are, quote unquote, better than maybe some of the more prestigious, quote unquote, universities. So really having students look at those programs. And again, I'm happy to meet with them and help them with their lists as well. Okay, so for the University of California system, a student has to have a 3.0 overall GPA, so the average to be able to apply. There are 9 undergraduate campuses, so the closest one, of course, to us is Davis, but they run up and down the state. There's only 1 application, so that nice thing is the student is just filling out 1 application and they're checking the box for each campus to which they want to apply. The downside, you still got to pay $70 for each campus. So if you apply to all 9, that's a hefty, fee right there. But we do encourage, I strongly encourage students to apply to at least 4 UCs, honestly, if they're gonna apply to UC. When I first got here, this was like 10 years ago, we had students who were only applying to UCLA and UC Berkeley. And UCLA this past year was 90% acceptance rate, Berkeley was 11%. So are those reaches for everyone? Those are reaches, right? For most students, those are reaches. So if you only apply to those two, you know, it's just not, it's putting your eggs in one basket, right? Or whatever the phrase is. You want to apply, and they say students who apply to 4 more campuses have a greater likelihood of being accepted. Yeah, question. Yeah, good question. I should have included a slide on that. It's close to about 14 right now, I believe, for tuition for UC. So just about double CSU. Yeah. Right? I think that. Yeah. That's not included the one. Oh, right. That's just tuition. Yeah. Yeah, just tuition, right? And then dorms become crazy, right? Yeah. Yeah, the website's always going to have estimated cost of attendance, and they'll show you, they'll break it all down for you, because there's books and supplies to transportation, all those things, right? So the good thing about this is they do look at more than just the GPA. So they're looking at the students' personal insight questions. There's actually 8 questions, and the students choose 4 to which to respond. And so they like to see the other parts of the student. So our students have so much to write about. I was working with a senior the other day. Literally, we got on the floor and we put all her PIQs on the floor because she had 7 awesome ones. I'm like, how are we going to pick 4? You know, because our students just do so many things. They have their arts, and then they have their volunteer a lot of time, or they work, or they have this unique family situation. They just have so much to write about. So we really encourage the students to work on those. They do work on those in their English class as well. They also ask about the activities, the awards. So they're really looking at a comprehensive review of the whole package of the student. They don't unfortunately accept any letters of recommendation. Only Berkeley sometimes will ask for a letter of recommendation further in the process, like everywhere. Question?
Yeah, if they don't
Right. Yeah, so you could still, there's still sections of what AP tests have to be taken, and yeah, and everything's self-reported. So the student is going to put everything down, and then at the end, once they've been admitted and they choose to attend, then they look at the final transcript. And I was warning them the other day that Santa Cruz told us that they rescinded 30 acceptances last year because students weren't truthful on their application. And like, why would you lie on your application? Because you know that they're going to check it at the end. They're not just going to say, oh, okay, sure, come on in. So you got to make sure. It's one little mistake, right? You make is no big deal. But these were students who were saying, I got all A's and B's, and then they got C's and D's. So yeah. Let's see. Okay, so I do have, and I'll show you in a few more slides. I do have some application work times in the evenings that I have 2 of those, one in October, one in November. And those are really great times. I have them from 4 p.m. after school till 7 p.m. I order a bunch of pizza. I know it's not healthy, but it's the easiest thing for me to bring in. And we just turn on some slow, soft music, and everyone's just sitting there working on their applications. And it's really a lovely time because if they get stuck on a question, they can call me over and I can unstick them, and then they keep going. But if they're at home and they get stuck on a question, they go, oh, forget it. I'm not going to do this right now. I'm going to work at home, or I'm going to look at TikTok. That's my son. So. But these are great times, and everyone's doing it. So it's positive peer pressure, because it's like, oh, they're getting that. Oh, where you finished 2 PIQs? I gotta get them on. So it's a good time. So I encourage you, and again, I'll show you the dates in a couple minutes here. They also have these, sorry, Laura, one last thing on that. Can go back for one sec. They also have these UC for You sessions. And so if you're interested in a specific UC campus, they have these Zoom sessions for parents to check out the campus virtually. Again, it's always better to go in person if you can, but these virtual sessions are great. And there's a link to that too. So we'll share the presentation if you want to look at those links. Okay. One other thing I always like to share to your parents is there's something called the Western Undergraduate Exchange, and you might not be aware of it. But if you live in one of these states that border California, then your student can go to a large number of institutions, colleges and universities, and pay 150% of what that state's tuition is. So it's a tuition scholarship discount. So sometimes we have students who really want to go to Oregon. And so unfortunately, the University of Oregon is not part of this program, but if they want to go to Oregon State or Southern Oregon, then you would just pay, you wouldn't pay full out-of-state tuition like somebody coming from Texas would pay, or someone coming from, Delaware would pay. You're paying 150% of what an Oregon would pay. And so there are, again, it's not like the University of Oregon, but a lot of great options up there. And so if you go to the next page, Laura, I think I showed you some examples. So here are some examples. Like UNR has great nursing, engineering. Western Washington, both my brothers-in-law went to Western Washington. That's a beautiful campus. Laura, you went to visit it, right? So there's a lot of great options, especially in California. We are so impacted, especially nursing and engineering. It's so hard. The acceptance rate, y'all, last year at UCLA for nursing, 1%. Maybe 1%. They took 50 out of 6,000 students. Isn't that crazy? It's just crazy. So I would say that you really want to do nursing and you don't get into one of the programs in California, maybe look at one of these other neighboring states. And doesn't mean you have to stay there. You can go for 4 years and come back, right? There's lots of different options. So just to look at that. Okay, so if your student is applying to a non-UC, a non-CSU, then they're probably applying to a school that's on the common application. So the common application has, oh, that's not right. So my numbers are wrong. Okay, so there's, oh no, there it is, 900. There's 900 or so colleges on this common application. So the idea is that a student can apply to a lot of different schools using this one application. But again, they still have to pay the fee, and the fee does range depending on the school. I've seen, for some it's free, and then I've seen others it goes up to, I think the most expensive I've seen, I think Juilliard right now is $150. So it is pricey. And each college typically has their own set of supplemental questions or short essays that they want the student to, like why do you want to go to USC or why do you want to go to NYU? So students have to respond to those. And so, Laura, I think these they'll require usually a bit more work. So we talked about the UC application, right? You're going to write the insight questions and write your activities and things. But these require all that, and they typically require letters of recommendation. So your student would need to get usually 1 or 2 academic teachers, and then I typically write. I have to write the letter as well. So I'm usually writing, 50 or 60 of these a year. So I ask the students to fill out a form for me. Some students I know really well, other students I've only met with, 3 or 4 times. And then I also ask the parents to give me some anecdotal detail. Because sometimes you know a little story about your student when they were a little kid, and I can tie that into the letter and make the letter much more vibrant and say, oh yeah, I want this kid on my campus. Okay. So again, these are typically the more difficult applications. So these are the ones a student really should be getting started on. And I do have workshops on Wednesdays for these applications. Yeah.
And then if you're going to
Yeah, exactly. They'll typically, if you're going to an arts program, they're going to want your arts instructor to write a letter. Yeah. And so it's gathering all of those up, and there's a lot of moving pieces. And then we didn't even really talk about the whole audition piece. If you're applying for a conservatory and arts program, then you're doing all this and you're doing all your pre-screen auditions. And so it's not for the faint of heart. It's a big process, but it's well worth it in the end. Yeah, exactly. A lot of those have much earlier deadlines than the regular deadline. So that is for sure. Yeah. I'm sorry, what? The scholarships already awarded.
Yeah.
There's an award section, and I think you can put them in there. One thing that I definitely encourage your students to do, and you might want to reiterate for me, is that if your student has in their personal email, right, if they've got more than 50 emails, and some of you might have 1,000 or 2 in your own personal emails, right? But the most disheartening thing for me is when a student misses an important email and they suffer. I think of a student a few years ago who got into NYU, really wanted to go to NYU, missed their supplemental secondary financial aid application by 1 day. Yeah. And then I called them and begged them, and they said, nope, we sent 5 emails with reminders, and they didn't do it. That's it. We're sorry. And so that just breaks my heart, because I know they would have gotten a lot of feed, right? And so just, again, I always tell them to create a separate college email and don't use it for anything else. Just use it for college stuff. And you have it on your phone or you're checking it so you don't miss something really important like that. Because there's so many deadlines, and they're not gonna talk to you all, right? Or they're not gonna send them to you all usually, unless you're helping to monitor those emails, but they're sending it to the student, they're working with the student directly. Okay, Laura? Okay, so these again are these evening workshops from 4 to 7. If you wanna write those down, it's Monday, October 24th and Wednesday, November 9th. And everyone's open, and if they only want to come from 5 to 6, they can come from 5 to 6. It's not, they can come and go as they please. But it's just a chance to carve out time in their busy schedules, because they're so busy. They're so busy. Yeah. Right, we've got that. Okay, so I'm also very present with them during this time, and I'm with them in their senior experience class every Wednesday. So the last Wednesday, I was with them and we talked about all these options after high school. Then yesterday, we went through the UC application. We went over some tips. We went over some statistics so they could figure out where they want to apply. And then we go into all these different things. So again, we talk about community college, vocational programs, financial aid, military, gap year. So every Wednesday, you can expect that they're getting information related to that after high school through their senior experience class. Now, some of these, when you see where it says whole group, that means everybody's getting it. And then the next week where it just says group, then that's optional for the student. They can come over and attend the session, or they can stay back. Because some students aren't interested in the military, right? So they don't want to go to a session about the military, but others do. So we want to make sure we provide, access to everyone, because everyone's paths are valid and everyone needs help and support on their path. Okay. So if you want to make an individual appointment with me or with your, I'm also the parent of a 17-year-old and a high school junior. So I know, I'll say stuff about college and be like, you don't know what you're talking about. But then my friend Tracy, the college counselor, and be like, oh yeah, Tracy said this. And I'm like, okay, because mom said it doesn't be baby, right? So you might say stuff and then, oh, Shenk-Tiffany said this, then they hear it, right? So, and your seniors are like, yeah, but I'm happy to meet with you and your senior individually, talk about their plan and their whatever you want to talk about. You can make an appointment through that system. You can see my calendar and just click on a time that works best for you. You can always also reach out to me. Email's usually the best way. I'll get back to you as quickly as I can through that system. Okay. I know I talked a lot and really fast.
A friend of mine, her child who graduated from PFA, got denied from Santa Barbara.
Their acceptance rate last year, that's okay.
Oh, no, no.
28%.
Yeah, so, but she, not, protest is the wrong word, she.
Appealed.
And got it.
Yes, and I would
So
say that was, I know exactly, I think you're talking about, that was the COVID year though, too.
It was.
So a lot of students weren't taking their yeses because they weren't paid for online classes. And so I think a little bit of an anomaly, because I showed this, actually I can send out the statistic, but last year, let me see. It was UCLA had 1,300 appeals and they accepted 3. So it's very unusual. That was a year again, because a lot of families were like, I'm not going to pay $15,000 tuition for you to be on online classes. So it definitely worked for them. So that was awesome. Yeah. And so occasionally appeal works, but it is rare. It's rare. Yeah. And unless there was a mistake made on the application, like a student literally left off an academic class and they said you're not eligible. So that.
Wait until they're accepted and then.
Depends on the university. So if it's for UC, yeah, it would be. But for private schools, they're going to want all those transcripts sent during the application period. Yeah. So I know then you have to send it from the college, send it from the private institution, and from the school. But I send it as part of my letter of recommendation. I automatically send the transcript to it, so I take care of it. Yeah, the school. Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. So if you're looking at our public institutions, they do not see senior grades. So UCCSU, they don't see senior grades because the students apply in November and senior grades don't come out till December and June, right? So the way that they matter is that they can hurt the student if they've been accepted and then they kind of screw around or mess around senior year. So I tell a sad story of my student at my former school. He got into UCLA, was all excited. Then second semester stopped going to calculus, stopped doing his English homework. He got a D in calculus and they rescinded his acceptance. He was no longer, and they tell you that when they accept you, they said this is a provisional acceptance based on good senior grades. So again, if they get B's in senior year, that's fine. It's just no D's or F's. So now, but if you're applying to a private school like Stanford or University Pacific or St. Mary's, they're going to look at that first semester grade. I have to turn in something called mid-year report, and they'll see that first semester grades. Good question. Yeah. Yeah, so that's called, I'm not the expert on it, so I'll just give you an overview, but I can also send you links where they talk about it pretty fully. But that's called the TAG program, Transfer Admission Guarantee. And the universities have them typically with those community colleges that are in their region. And they basically say for these specific majors, if you take these courses and get this GPA, then you're automatically admitted. So it's a great program. We've had lots of students go that way. And then again, you save money because you're doing a free tuition for 2 years. And then your odds of getting in are definitely higher. Okay. As long as the student, again, is taking the right courses, meeting with an advisor. And I always tell them, you know, here at Charter, if you're missing a class or something, I'm going to call you in, I'm going to chase you down, I'm going to make sure I'm changing your schedule, you're going to get in that class. But that's not going to happen in college, right? Not always. They're going to maybe meet with an advisor, but they're expected to go make an appointment with the advisor, find out if they're taking the right classes, and do that over and over again. So at the community college, usually after the first year, yeah. But they have special designated transfer counselors at the community college. Yeah, and so that's why, again, if you're looking at, we've had a lot of students who love Woodland Community College because they're smaller, they get a lot of attention, they get the same advisor every time. You know, ARC is so huge. I think, what are they at? I think they're at 29,000 right now. Yeah, I know. So sometimes if you choose a smaller community college, it can be real helpful. Like we just had a alum, she transferred to UC Davis for engineering, went to Woodland, and yeah, she felt like Woodland really set her up for success.
Yeah, I thought, because I went to college, I thought the kids who went to Preston College were the smartest ones, because, you know, they're going to college, they're living in San Francisco, all of the college students, they're living in a college town, and they're not paying, you know, for quality, and then, the next year.
Yeah, I think so too. I just tell students to keep as many doors open as possible. And so that you don't have to make any ultimate decisions unless you're applying, you know, early decisions are a whole other bag of worms, but you don't have to make any decision until May 1st. That's the deadline that you have to tell the school that you're coming or not, put down the deposit. So just apply a bunch of schools, see what happens, and make your decision down the road after you've done all the research. Yeah, I can, and definitely. So there are different admission plans for the I want to say private or typically they don't like to be called private, independent colleges. So they typically have like an early action when you apply early by November 1st, and then you can find out by December 15th if you've been admitted. And then there's also early decision. That's the binding one though. So that's where you're saying, this is my #1 dream school. I've been to visit. If I get in, I'm going to go. And I have to sign up on that I've counseled the student with the parent about that. It is a binding agreement. And the only way you don't go is if for some reason the finances fall through. But we have to sign. It's a very serious thing in the college's mind. So yeah, so we do have students who sometimes apply early decision. But again, it should be if the student knows that's my #1 school, I've been to visit, you know, probably can figure out the finances, all of that. So yeah, early action is not binding. I think Stanford has a restrictive early action. We can only apply early action to them. Always different things. But otherwise, you can usually apply early action to lots of several schools. Especially, and if you're on top of it and you're like organized and you've got all your essays written and your letters are read, do it. No, like I said, it's just Stanford that's the restrictive early action. I don't think anyone else is restrictive. So they got all their stuff done. I say apply early. And because sometimes it's like, okay, good, I got into at least one school. But you know, I got into a couple schools, yeah, and that's great. Then it just takes some pressure off.
Yeah, you don't have to decide on the first.
Yeah, exactly. They took such pressure off.
Well, and nursing too, Derek.
Yeah, they give us that.
You got it right away. And those are the two that they.
Yeah, so that was nice that they have that kind of.
So, the.
So can I use your child as an example? So today we went to the HBCU college fair, and it was fantastic, and some of our students got accepted literally on the spot because their grades are so high, and it was fantastic to see that, because sometimes they're like, oh, well, I'm not charter, I'm just average, and I'm like, no, you're not average, go see, and they're like, oh, wow, no, we want to give you right now, and here's $7,000, yeah. So it really literally makes their acceptance. And so if they were to choose to go to that, and some of our students aren't going to go all the way to Delaware or Baltimore, right? But the fact that they're like, hey, this school is fun. But it is acceptance. She got accepted. Well, for a couple of them, like Morgan State, they did it right there. They sat there for 20 minutes and did the application. It's a great option. I know, it's so exciting. We took lots of pictures. Dr. was going to put them on the Facebook page today. The UCs don't do that. I wish they would. Yeah. No, there won't be, they don't do it fairly. They just do like informational sessions. But yeah, I wish they would. That would be fun. Would that be great?
So in that early applications or early applications, they quickly offer scholarships or aid.
Sometimes they do, yeah, sometimes they do. Other times they just wait until the financial, because the financial forms are coming in usually around that same time. But sometimes they'll offer scholarships with that acceptance. Yeah, very acceptance. It just depends, every school has a little slightly different process. Yeah. No, so I think I just mentioned it because I'm going to do a whole actually FAFSA Saturday for any folks who want to come and attend. But the FAFSA is the financial aid, free application for federal student aid that students are required to do. And we talk a lot about it in senior experience. And again, I'll send that all out to you. But that is an important document to fill out. In fact, everyone this year, they passed the legislation that everyone has to either fill one out or I have to chase you down and you have to sign a form saying you're opting out or filling it out. So please help me out. But I always encouraged everyone to fill it out because you don't know down the road. It might be something that scholarship is going to want to see, you know, it could be, you just don't know what you're going to get. And it, literally they tried to streamline it and make it, and actually in 2 years from now, they're going to reduce the number of questions by 2/3. It's going to be amazing, I know. So, but that's not for another 2 years. You know, the government works slowly.
You have to do your taxes early, right?
No, so the reason what they do is called prior year. And so when you're applying for fall of 23, you're looking at 21 taxes. So Obama changed that rule because exactly. Yeah, it's good. So, and there's also something in there called a data retrieval tool. So you can actually link up your tax form with the FAFSA and it'll just populate it for you. That's what I strongly suggest doing. It's fancy. Yeah, it's getting better every year. I mean, I remember sitting at my desk doing it in paper years ago. So they have a question at the very end that says, do you want to add another student to this FAFSA?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Not go through all the time.
Exactly. Yeah, isn't that great? Yeah, that's a new addition too. They didn't always have that. So yeah. And then I know we're not really talking about financial aid, but we are. But also if you're applying to some private universities, they also sometimes require a supplemental form called the CSS profile. And so that's an even longer form where they're trying to look at other assets and things that you might have. So I think it's like Yeah, so it's not part of the fall because most of the scholarship applications for our local, Northern California come out in the springtime. So I do visit them on Wednesdays and I pass it out and I say, oh, you're interested in architecture, you better fill this one out. But yeah, so the local ones are the ones that our students honestly have the better chance of getting because there's the national ones, and sometimes we'll get a student gets a national scholarship, but typically, Coca-Cola gets 30,000 applicants for like 4 awards or something. It's so hard to get. But the ones that our students do really well are the ones that are, our county or Northern California. And so I pass those out. Miss Woods, who's my administrative assistant in the counseling center, She has a whole scholarship website. You can even look at it tonight if you wanted to. She updates it every year. And everyone goes on there, and it's students and senior experience. I'm like, okay, pull up the scholarship website, look at this month's scholarships, which one applied to you? So, yeah, we try very hard, and we do have pretty good success.
Correct, that in order to get merit, you have to.
For some schools, yeah, they want to. I don't know if every school requires that, but for need, for sure, yeah. For any kind of need-based aid, like a Pell Grant, yeah. So that it opens on October 1st and it's due March 2nd. So usually, because most families kind of wait a little bit and so we usually talk about it more like in November. I'll have it again, access Saturday, and then we send out information about it. Get that. November's not here before we know it. Oh, no, the decision's separate from financially. Yeah.
No, I mean, if you get.
Oh, yeah, it might delay it, so you probably want to do it early if I do it earlier rather than later. Have some good questions on all these things. I'm like, next year I'll put a slide on that, next year I'll put a slide. Oh, it's so nice to have the faces. Thank you, and I'll stick around if anyone has private questions they want to ask.
All right.
Right. I know, it's funny. You're like, I'm like, oh,